Yahoo Sports Fantasy Football Live is presented by Crown Royal and Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Good morning, everyone. It is week 11, and this is Fantasy Football Live here on Yahoo Sports. I'm Liz Loza, and joining me this morning is Andy Behrens from Chicago, Matt Harmon from Los Angeles, Tank Williams from San Francisco, and joining the cast to offer his betting analysis from Mad Bets and the host of The Rush, also the co-host of the Fantasy Rush, is Jared Quay from Arizona. Welcome, Jared.
Hey, guys.
All right, guys, we've got, a lot to get to this week. But before we do, we have Thanksgiving coming up. Which player, I have to ask, have you been most thankful for this season? Andy, why don't you start us off?
Oh, I talked about James Robinson at the top of last week's show, and I think I got to go back to him here. He's basically the waiver ad, either the preseason or the week one waiver ad that has erased some of my worst fantasy mistakes. Pretty much all those leagues where I tied myself to Zeke Elliott and that hasn't worked out, or I chose Michael Thomas in the first round, that all gets washed away if you have James Robinson on the roster, because he never lets you down. He's got 90-plus scrimmage yards 7 times already this year. They throw to him. He's just been an absolute godsend for fantasy owners.
Matt, what about you? Has there been a waiver wire godsend like James Robinson for Andy?
No, not a waiver wire guy, but I'm extra thankful for Terry McLaurin, because when you hype up a player all offseason and he's like kind of in a weird situation with the Washington football team and their quarterback situation, you got to kind of be like, okay, how is this going to go? But McLaurin has made it easy. It doesn't matter who's under center. The guy's producing like a literal top 10 wide receiver. So I'm thankful for you, Terry McLaurin. I'm grateful that you are part of the reason that I look good this year. And that's really all I care about in reality.
Tank, what about you? Who are you grateful for?
Man, I'm thankful for Derrick Henry. Like, that was a guy that I targeted early in a lot of drafts, and I got him. And even though he hasn't, come out like he normally does in the winter, he's still, probably top 3 running back across all leagues. And I think most importantly, when he stiff-armed Josh Norman into, IR for, a few weeks, that was a gift that just kept on giving on social media for, weeks on end. It's still giving. So, Derrick Henry, you my guy.
All right. Well, I also have a running back that I hyped and was a little bit nervous about over the offseason, and it is hands down Josh Jacobs. He is playing like an absolute stud. He's touching the ball 23 times a game. He's top 5 in yards created, tackles evaded, and touchdowns converted in all of the leagues in which I have Jacobs. I am heading to the playoffs. Cannot say the same of the others. But nobody wants to hear about my fantasy team. Jared, what about you? Any players or betting trends you're grateful for in 2020?
I'm excited for betting trends. This year, overs have hit 53% of the time. Obviously, there's been a lot of scoring in the NFL, but the betting lines have adjusted to that, but still teams are covering over it. And there's no better feeling than betting an over and winning before the game is over. So I'm very thankful for that in 2020.
All right. Always grateful for winning. Don't forget, speaking of winning, we are here to help you set those lineups. So send your roster questions on Twitter at Yahoo Fantasy using the AskFFL hashtag, or drop a question in the chat, and we'll try to answer as many as we can on the show. Plus, our own Scott Pianowski is responding to questions live on Twitter as we speak. Turning our attention to the injury report, we've got some notable players already ruled out today. Christian McCaffrey being chief among them, so you can fire up Mike Davis against the Leaky Lions defense. I'm sure we'll talk more about that throughout the episode. Speaking of the Lions, rookie DeAndre Swift, Andy, was ruled out with a concussion. Looks like Adrian Peterson and Kerryon Johnson will split carries today. And Sammy Watkins, surprise, surprise, suffered a setback this week and will not join the Chiefs. But Kansas City did activate Mecole Hardman ahead of Sunday Night Football. Now we're going to look at the actives inactives list. Panthers quarterback Teddy Bridgewater is active today. It's going to happen. We'll see how well. In that same game, Matthew Stafford is active after missing some reps in practice. this week. He's been dealing with a thumb injury, of course, and one of his main targets will not be in uniform today. Kenny Golladay is going to miss his third straight game with that hip injury. Danny Amendola is also out. Woo, the Lions are a mess. And Patriots running back Damian Harris was listed as questionable and will play, according to NFL Network's Ian Rappaport. And a late update on Sony Michel, he will not suit up today, in fact. So I'm sure we'll get a lot of Harris questions as well.
All right, we're going to start off with fantasy freebies. You know the drill here. We're talking about players who are likely to produce at a high level, who are only started in less than 25% of Yahoo leagues. Liz, why don't you kick us off?
Ooh, 2020 strikes again, baby. I want to talk about Kalen Ballage. You've got Justin Jackson on IR. Austin Eckler still not back. He close, though. I think we might hear from him. So the Chargers have employed this kitchen sink approach to their backfield, but it looks like Kalen Ballage has emerged as the top dog in Los Angeles. He's managed at least 15 totes in back-to-back games. He's caught 7 balls over his past 2. Troy Maine Pope, I can never say his name, Troy Maine Pope was active last week and did not touch the ball. Ballage is in another revenge spot, back-to-back revenge spots against the Jets. I like him to perform this week.
Oh, that's a great call. Tank, give us the quarterback ad of the week.
Man, I'm talking about a guy we're going to be talking about a lot during this show, Taysom Hill. Like, the one thing I got to say is that Matt Harmon been playing Taysom Hill, like, for the past 4 weeks before he even got the starting job. But now this dude is actually starting in a really good matchup against the Atlanta Falcons. And I got to say, like, this may be Sean Payton's wet dream coming to reality because he's always been trying to find ways to pull Drew Brees out the game and get Taysom in there. But now he gets 4 quarters of Taysom Hill. I can't wait to try to see Sean Payton prove that he's the smartest guy out there on the sideline this week. It's going to be interesting.
Okay, my guy is an option if you can't start Taysom Hill, because I agree with you, Taysom Hill would be a very strong play at the quarterback position. Can't get him. Take a look at Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is the guy who gets to throw to Adam Thielen. He's the guy who gets to throw to Justin Jefferson. That has worked out pretty well all season long. Volume is constantly a concern, right? I think he only has 3 games this year with even 30 pass attempts. So it's possible that he'll only throw the ball 15 times. The nice thing about that is when he throws it, it is downfield. These are high-yield pass attempts. He's averaging close to 10 intended air yards per target on the season. And again, you love his pass catchers. Oh, and you love the matchup, too. It's Dallas this week. They've allowed 21 passing scores so far on the season. I think Kirk Cousins is a strong play in this one. We should also add that despite the early report on Teddy Bridgewater, apparently P.J. Walker is the guy who's going to get the start this week. That would also be a desperation super flex play. Okay, time now for Fantasy Football Weapons presented by Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where you can build the legend of a Viking Raider. This new game features dual-wielding combat by pairing 2 different weapons together to take on enemies. So in that spirit, we are selecting fantasy combinations, or stacks, if you will, and the Visceral Viking weapons they represent from Assassin's Creed. Here's Matt Harmon with his Week 11 pick.
Yeah, let's talk about some stacks. Jump into our Nordic time machine here. We're going to be starting about some exciting players here. Carson Wentz. Yeah, sure, I guess. Carson Wentz and Jalen Rhaegar playing the part of the Berserker Axe and Excalibur. Yes, we'll get to that in a minute. But let's start with Carson Wentz as that Berserker Axe. Number one, yeah, it kind of you go berserk a little bit if you got to watch too much Eagles football. But the axe provides a wide cutting surface while keeping the overall weight of the axe low. Doesn't that sound like the wide range of outcomes for Carson Wentz? Because let's be real, despite the fact he's combined for fewer than like 19 points the last 2 weeks, from weeks 3 to 7, he cleared 19 points in every single game. So we know there's a ceiling here. Why not try to chase it this week in a pretty good matchup against a Cleveland defense that's going to be without Myles Garrett and is already a back half of the league unit anyways. Obviously, it could drive you a little bit of berserk if you gotta watch Carson Wentz play, but you should enjoy the fantasy points, especially with the Excalibur of this revamped Eagles offense, and that's Jalen Rhaegar, who leads the team in targets over the last 2 weeks, leads the team in air yards and routes run last week. Despite Alshon Jeffrey being back, it's clear that he's the key to unlock this Eagles passing game the rest of the way. And somehow he's rostered in fewer than 30% of Yahoo leagues. Wake up, sheeple. Go pick up Jalen Rhaegar. He's going to be a good bet with a solid schedule to end 2020 here. Now, let's move on to, I guess, a bit more of an exciting stack against the Houston Texans defense this week, and that's Cam Newton and Jakobi Meyers. Cam Newton is playing the part of the great sword. Jakobi Meyers will be our spear. Now, when I hear great sword, that sounds like an older weapon with some great history to it. But, some of the younger knights, they're probably giggling, when they see that great sword. But when it's unsheathed, it still commands respect and inspires fear. And Cam Newton over the last 2 weeks has reminded us that he should inspire fear in opposing defenses and command respect from the young guys. He has a 104 passer rating, 77% completion rate, 7.5 yards per attempt, while still producing, obviously, as a rusher. As a matter of fact, his 78% accuracy rate per Sports Radar is a top 5 mark among quarterback. He's back now that he's feeling well after his COVID break. He even admitted himself he kind of felt like he fell behind, but he's up to speed now, and really the best part of this is Jakobi Meyers. That's helped Cam Newton get back up to speed. Now the spear, basic in its design, it's a little more than a long wooden pole with a sharpened iron head, but it's an effective weapon nonetheless. And yes, Jakobi Meyers has been incredibly effective for Cam Newton despite not looking like he's anything special. Myers is a fine separation-based receiver, and he actually, over the last 4 weeks, leads all players with the 61% share of his team air yards and has a 38% target share. That trails only Devontae Adams. So this guy is clearly being used like a number one receiver. He's spending time outside. He's spending time in the slot. He's the do-it-all guy for Cam Newton. You got to love his matchup against a Texans defense that's, obviously we can run all over them. Damian Harris, Cam Newton, they're going to have their time as a rusher. But when Cam Newton is throwing the ball, when that great sword is unsheathed, it's going to Jakobi Meyers. We know that to be a fact. Now, you all out there, come on, be sure to check out Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It's available now on Xbox S, S, and Xbox One.
All right, we're going to give Harmon a chance to resheath the great sword and head to over-under number 1. We're talking about the Sunday night game. We're going to talk about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. This is somebody you selected the first, second round, so you need fantasy points. Over under 13.9 fantasy points in this one. I'll start us off, and I don't think he gets there. Man, you look at these last 3 games for the Chiefs, he's not playing more than 50% of the snaps. Ever since Le'Veon Bell entered the picture, he's gone from being a player who sees 2/3, 70% of the snaps. Now it's about 50%. Doesn't have double-digit touches in any of these last 3 games. I think Kansas City is going to be able to choose their number this week. I think they're going to have a huge week against the Raiders. I get it. You want the running backs tied to that situation, but again, he's just not seeing the field often enough for me. I don't think he gets there. Hank, how do you feel?
Man, I'm going with you, dog. I got to go under. And I'm not sure which way Jared's going to go, so I'm going to go ahead and take on Minty's role of always going under. Like, the matchup is perfect. Like, the Raiders give up the 6th most fantasy points to running backs, but at the same time, this dude's usage is atrocious. And, I mean, honestly, I just see Pat Mahomes and those guys coming back off of a bye and trying to get revenge for the loss earlier this season. He's been throwing for like 4 to 5 tubs already the past couple weeks, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire can't even get a pinch of that, so I expect that to continue, man, under.
Jared, do we have a sweep?
Absolutely not. I'm sorry I can't be what Minty does normally, but I'm going over here. I think Andy Reid, after a bye, usually comes up with an amazing system, and you can't not use a talent like CEH to get the ball. The Raiders' defense is tasked with stopping Kelsey, Tyreek Hill, and Mecole Hardman going deep. I think that gives a lot of opportunities to CEH out the backfield. So I think over 13 is very doable.
I like it. I respect it. Jared establishing himself as the anti-Minty, not afraid to take an over.
It's time to get some of those roster questions. Don't forget to use the hashtag AskFFL. Our first tweet comes from Hunter Gass, and he needs one for his flex. He's got Miles Sanders, Kalen Ballage, Justin Jefferson. Those are the 3 options. This is a full PPR league. Matt, I'm going to start with you. Who are you preferring that our buddy Hunter here flex?
Man, one of these things is not like the other, if you catch my drift in this question. I'm going to go with Justin Jefferson here, though. Look, this guy has played like a clear top 15 receiver in real life, in the NFL. Like, he's been that good as a rookie. He's like incredible in a bunch of efficiency metrics, awesome route runner, no matter what. Obviously a good matchup against the Dallas Cowboys. I think that game, like Andy talked about it earlier with Kirk Cousins, I feel like that game could actually go over its projected point total if Andy Dalton, despite the fact that he can't taste or smell, apparently, I think he could taste a little bit of fantasy goodness against that Vikings defense on the other side. Increases the point total. I like Jefferson. Tough to bench Sanders, but I think I'm going to go with Jefferson here.
I love that we're talking about Andy Dalton's palate here in Week 11. Jared, get ready. This next question is for you. It's from Josh, and he wants to know, should I be on the Falcons plus 3.5 with Taysom Hill a QB for the Saints?
Absolutely. Saints defense have been playing amazing. That's what people don't understand. The last 4 weeks, they've been literally shutting down good teams. The defense we thought would be coming into 2020 is finally here. That on top of the fact that the Falcons are coming off a bye, but when you have a new quarterback coming, it takes away the advantage because you really don't know what they're going to do. So I think the Saints should still roll here as they're probably one of the best teams playing the last couple of weeks. I don't think the Falcons can slow them down.
Okay, Andy, get ready. And this question is from Alyssa. It's a running back question. With Sony Michel back from IR, is Damian Harris still a better start than Duke Johnson? Well, it looks like Michel isn't going to suit up, but are you still taking Damian Harris, even with the chest, ankle injuries, over Duke Johnson?
Yeah, well, this is the right format for Damian Harris, right? Non-PPR, because they don't throw him the football. He would be a terrific fantasy weapon in PPR leagues, obviously. If they ever looked his way as a receiver, but they don't. But you don't care because this is standard format. I would give him a greater chance of finding the end zone in this matchup than I would Duke Johnson. I think the Patriots actually had to pull Michel off of IR or they were going to lose him for the year, right? So I don't think he's going to be much of a factor, certainly not this week, perhaps in the weeks ahead either. I think Harris is going to be a strong play here, again, in your format alone.
Also, matchup pretty good for Harris in this one. All right, Matt, we have a tight end question from Messiah Hemmingsworth. Oh, I love that name. Gronk or Goddard? I am with you about the future of Philly's pass catchers. Are you still liking Gronk, though, in that loaded receiving core that Tom Brady has over Goddard?
I'm so thankful that you give me a tight end question, the best and most fun position to talk about in fantasy football.
I gave you time to think about it there.
Yeah, and I was too busy spending all that time disgusted. So great, that's on me, not using my time well. I'm going to use my time, though, to talk about Dallas Goedert because I think that's the way you probably got to go. I mean, Cleveland, again, not a great defense. Like I said, they're missing Myles Garrett. That's like, Myles Garrett's probably the only good thing about their defense on that side of the ball for Cleveland. So probably going to go with Goddard here, but that might just be a little bit of take lock. So my friend Messiah, you might need a little more help, if you know what I mean, than what I can provide you for this question.
Okay, and so this is going to be our last question. Jared, why don't you help me out on it? It's a flex question from Jackson, PPR League. He's got T. Higgins or Chase Claypool. I will say that you can't sit T. Higgins, even though he had a little bit of an illness this week. But are you preferring Chase Claypool in a potential blow-up spot?
I love Chase Claypool. I think Big Ben's number 2 receivers have always been well. I mean, Antonio Brown was a number 2 to Emmanuel Sanders and Mike Wallace. And now Chase Claypool gets that luxury spot of not having the elite corner on him. And so him going against the Jaguars here, I think that he could have a big blow-up spot. Now, obviously, T. Higgins is emerging as one of Joe Burrow's top targets there. But Chase Claypool is a touchdown machine. I love him in the red zone here, and I think he scores a couple touchdowns.
All right, so we're split on that one. My apologies, Jackson. Take your pick. Time for our first break here on Fantasy Football Live. Alex Smith attempted 55 passes last week, but didn't find the end zone. Will he be a better fantasy option than, say, Ryan Tannehill this week? Andy and Matt will debate that when we come back.
Don't be that guy on game day. Moderate your drinking and your lineup. It's time for a Crown Royal water break.
Yes, it's time for another Crown Royal water break with my girl Lizzie. So Liz, most of the time we kind of ragging on players that we need a break from, but I think this week we need to take a break from some coaches and probably some players too. So I'm gonna let you go ahead and get into who we need to take our Crown Royal water break from.
Tank, I know you feel me on this one. At this point of the season and in this particular year, my patience is starting to wear thin, especially with, mind games and indecisiveness. So that being said, I need a break from Sean Payton and his Sagittarian cusp flip-flopping. Are we doing Winston, Hill, or GTFO?
Man, that's the thing. Like, I don't understand why these coaches like to play these games. We already heard about the Shanahanigans. Now we got to deal with the Taysom Hilligans. Because, like, obviously they came out and everyone thought that Jameis was going to start. And then the reporter said it was going to be Taysom. And then Sean Payton like, nah, hold up, cuz. I ain't say who I'm starting yet. Like, if you the best team in the division, why don't you just come out and say who going to start and then go beat somebody's head in? Why we got to play all these games? I ain't with it.
It's some trickery between this old rivalry, between the Saints and the Falcons. I don't like it one bit. All right, but as frustrating as these quarterbacks are, I also need a break from coaches who cannot commit to an RB. Sean McVay was probably daydreaming about chilled rosé and rookie RBs as he was matching the Lions' offer sheet for Malcolm Brown last spring. And Bill Belichick? Well, just ask Miss Linda how quick he is to put a ring on it.
Right? I mean, the good thing is that we don't have Sony Michel up this week, so we ain't got to worry about BB, but always we can count on another Sean messing up the church's money on a good old Sunday. I mean, we had Darrell Henderson balling out, even though we had that Malcolm Brown shade in there. Now all of a sudden, Cam Akers coming up out the woodwork. Like, I feel like Sean McVay, like, he just lives to muddy up the waters. Like, I bet he was that little kid that used to hop in the swimming pool and always just throw like a little doo-doo that was floating in there. Like, if he can't have fun, nobody can't have fun.
Well, listen, maybe when your quarterback is as dull as Jared Goff, you have to find your excitement elsewhere. And that excitement, for me, is usually peach season. But this year's crops have been less than juicy, if you hear what I'm saying. I need a break from every tight end not named Travis Kelce.
Like, for real, though. Like, honestly, like, how is George Kittle still the third highest scoring tight end in fantasy this year? Like, I was looking through the list and I was like, Jonnu Smith is fourth. Like, I own Jonnu in a bunch of like rosters on my roster page. And when I look at him in the lineup, like, I don't look at Jonnu Smith and be like, oh, he's the fourth highest scoring tight end. Like, not at all. And I think what I also need a break from while I'm on this little rant is like Travis Kelce owners. Because, like, I'm getting tired of like them just plugging this dude in and he's like the number one tight end each and every week. Like, I need a break from all these other tight ends, but most importantly, I need a break from the cats that get to rock with Travis Kelce week on week. And then I guess they need a break from us now because we've been ranting too much about all these coaches and players. So, Producer Dan, take it on to the next segment.
That was a Crown Royal water break. Moderate your drinking on game day. Stay hydrated and stay royal.
All right, let's do our little fantasy face-off here where we debate some similarly ranked players. We got quarterbacks and wide receivers here with me and the great Andy Behrens. Andy, we're going real exciting here at the quarterback position with your guy, Alex Smith, up against Ryan Tannehill for me. I don't even know what I'm really thinking on this one, but I'm sure while you're talking about Alex Smith, I'll come up with a good reason why I'm picking Ryan Tannehill. So take it away.
Yeah, here's two guys that I would bench for Taysom Hill in a heartbeat. At least my guy, coming off a couple of games in which empty yardage performances, right? In which he's thrown for 300 yards. My guy gets to throw to Terry McLaurin, which I feel pretty good about. He also gets all those cheap yards from J.D. McKissick, from Antonio Gibson, right? So I feel like that's in play. He's also facing Cincinnati, a team that ranks 29th in pass defense DVOA.
Yeah, now when you can hype up a guy coming off his lowest scoring game of the season, you gotta do it, and that's what I'm gonna do with Ryan Tannehill here. But look, I actually think he has the safe floor. Despite last week, he's been a pretty safe play all year, so I think he's got the safe appeal that Alex Smith does as well. But I actually think he kind of has a sneakier ceiling this week than we're giving him credit for because Jared's brother, Calais Campbell, is out this week. Brandon Williams also going to miss this game. We know Tennessee is one of the most run-heavy teams on early down, so if they're moving the ball with Derrick Henry, that's more touchdown potential for Ryan Tannehill. So I think that's a key to this game. Now, let's move on to our wide receiver spot here. We've got Chris Godwin versus Will Fuller. I'll kick it off with Chris Godwin here. You know, all three of these Bucs receivers are playing a lot, but over the last 2 weeks, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, 37.5 routes per game. Obviously, that is tied for the team lead. Godwin, of course, too, runs most of his routes from the slot, 29 routes per game from the interior. I think that's key in this matchup because if Jalen Ramsey's going to trail one of these guys in Tampa Bay, I think it's either going to be Mike Evans or Antonio Brown. Brown is the highest perimeter percentage receiver on this team. So Brown actually has a pretty good shot at getting trailed by Ramsey too because he's playing well. So I would go with Chris Godwin in this matchup because I expect it to be high scoring. But Andy, I love Will Fuller. You love Will Fuller. Tell me why he's a better play this week.
Yeah, I don't have anything bad to say necessarily about Godwin. I think he's a strong play here. Will Fuller's just the guy who's already scored six times this season. He has 4 different 100-yard performances. He's facing a New England defense that, okay, they've got Gilmore back. That's going to matter. No question that's going to matter. But on the season, they've allowed 8.6 yards per pass attempt. So this has not been a stay-away defense at all, and I think Fuller sees plenty of volume.
No, not at all. I love the Fuller pick, too. It's nice to cleanse our palate after talking about Ryan Tannehill and Alex Smith by talking about a couple of stud receivers.
Let's get back to those roster questions and make some picks for you. We are looking mostly at flex questions here. Come on, Tank, and join me. This first one is from Ben. He needs to pick 2 between T. Higgins, who I've already hyped up, Travis Fulgham, and Damian Harris. Oh, you know what? I'm going to say T. Higgins for sure. And then the question remains whether or not you're going Fulgham and Harris. I like the touchdown upside of Harris, even though, you know, Cam might vulture him at the goal line. What do you think, Tank?
Man, so this is the thing. This is my thinking. I had somebody ask me if he should play Christian Kirk on Thursday night, and I was trying to go for the upside, but the running backs always have the safer floor. And so now we have a Damian Harris in a really good matchup against that Houston Texans run defense. We know there's not going to be Sony Michel. You always have to worry about Cam vulture and touchdowns, but I like the fact that he's probably going to rush over 100 yards, and if he does get in the end zone, that's an easy win in the flex for you. So I got to go Harris.
All right, I like that one. We're in lockstep so far. Tweet number 2 is from Metal Mitch, and he asks, he has 2 spots, DJ Chark, Gio Bernard, Chris Godwin, or Duke Johnson. We just heard Matt talk up Chris Godwin. Where are we going here? For me, Gio Bernard without Joe Mixon is a lock because of volume, even in a tough matchup, but what he does in the passing game makes him very valuable. So who's the second option here for you?
I mean, I think both of the wide receivers have really tough matchups, whether you're talking about DJ Chark or Chris Godwin. I don't know if I want to trust Duke Johnson against New England. So I'd probably go with Godwin. I thought that finger was messed up. But, I mean, he went off last week, and I expect him only to improve. They're playing in that primetime game. I understand it's going to be a tough matchup against the Rams, but I think Jalen Ramsey is the one that's going to end up on Mike Evans. And so even though the other cornerback's been playing well, I think they have enough weapons on that Tampa Bay offense when you include the tight ends and the running backs as well that Godwin should be able to put up some decent numbers this week.
All right, one more. Let's get to this last one. It's from Austin. He has a tight end and a flex. Jared Cook or TJ Hawkinson, and then Robbie Anderson and Chris Godwin. To me, TJ Hawkinson is the easy answer given all of the injuries to the Lions. Are you in agreement there? And which wide receiver would you start?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on TJ Hawkinson, all the injuries that the Lions have. Plus, he was about the only skill position guy that didn't get off last week, so I think that's going to turn in his favor this week. And then when we look at the wide receivers, I think you got to go with Chris Godwin again. I mean, I think it's intriguing to look at Robbie Anderson, but I really don't know what to expect out of P.J. Walker this week, and so I'm going to go ahead and go with Chris Godwin, the proven commodity with TB12 throwing the rock to him.
Love it, Tank. We're always in a nice mind meld. You keep sending in those questions, and we'll get to more flex picks later in the show.
All right, let's make a little money wagering on some player props available right now from our friends at BetMGM. Tank, start us off. What do you like?
Man, I got to go with my man, Mr. Dalvin Cook, over 103.5 yards, minus 115. And it's pretty simple. I mean, he's going against that Dallas defense that gives up 157 yards per game. And I think it also goes in line with what you were talking about earlier. You felt like Kirk Cousins may be a good play, but what? He may only throw the ball a few times. Why? Because that Minnesota team is run-centric. And why wouldn't you be when you have the best running back scoring touchdowns and running for mad yards each and every game? Dalvin Cook is that dude, and this is about the easiest money you can get in a player prop.
Yeah, that seems actually like a lock to me. Jared, give us another lock.
I got even easier money than what Tank just said. Keenan Allen has been on a tear. They have him at 78 yards right now, and I think he goes way over this. The Jets defense hasn't been able to stop any good receivers. They're the fourth worst in pass defense. That on top of the fact that they're going to want to blitz Justin Herbert, and every time you blitz him, who does he find? Keenan Allen. And who does Keenan Allen find? The right spot in the defense, and that's why I find this over easy money for Keenan Allen over 78.
Yeah, another good call. Give me the over on Lamar Jackson rush attempts. The line is set at 9.5. You look back at his last 4 games, he's averaging over 12 rush attempts per game. Basically, the story of the season is that if it's a competitive game at all, Lamar is going to run the ball at least 10 times. Double-digit carries in each of the last 3 games. Matchup this week with Tennessee doesn't get much better than that. They allow 4.5 yards per carry. I think this is going to be a back-and-forth game. I think it is still going to be competitive in the second half, which, again, always means that Lamar is running the ball. So give me the over on that one. Folks, if you feel like taking a chance on any of these player props, sign up today at betmgm.com/Yahoo. New users will receive a 100% match up to $1,000 when you make your first deposit. Must be over 21 and in New Jersey, Colorado, Indiana, or West Virginia. Terms apply.
Every Sunday night, I file my recap piece late in the night, and I do appreciate you lunatics out there, especially those on the East Coast that stay up and read that. It's the 5 things I care about, the 5 things I don't care about coming out of a slate of games. But going into week 11 here, let's talk about something I definitely do not care about, and that's the fact that the Titans are in a slump right now. And let's be real, they are in a slump, but I think it can be easily explained. They're 3-4. They're 3-4 over their last 4 games. They're not doing so well. We know that the defense, and particularly the pass rush, has emerged as a problem. However, the offense is also slumping as well. They have not scored more than 24 points as a team in any of those games after clearing 30 in 4 of their first 5 games and 40 points in 2 of 5. But I think the variance can be easily explained by matchups. Let's look at the DVOA rankings of their past opponents and a couple of their upcoming ones. Steelers, 2nd. Bengals, 30th. They're the outlier here. The Bears, 3rd. The Colts, 4th. The Ravens, 6th. The Colts in Week 12, 4th. There's like 3 or 4, maybe 5 good defenses in the league, and the Titans are playing all of them right now. That, I think, is the reason why Ryan Tannehill has come back to the pack, why A.J. Brown is coming off a disappointing game, why Derrick Henry has been more of a floor play recently. But the good news, after they get past the Ravens and the Colts the next couple weeks, the schedule takes a 180-degree turn as their opponents the rest of the way. We've got the Jaguars, the Browns, the Lions, the Packers, the Texans. They rank an average of 23rd in defensive DVOA. So what I'm telling you folks out there who have A.J. Brown, Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, maybe even Tank, you've got Jonnu Smith on a lot of your rosters. Me too, buddy, me too. But I think you can hold out a candle of hope for these guys because those matchups are going to turn around. So yes, if the Titans can just go, split these 2 games with the Colts and the Ravens, they'll be 7-4, 8-3 going into their stretch run. And I think as they do, they can push for an individual playoff spot as a team because of those good matchups. And more importantly, for you people, the people, my people out there, they can help you win some fantasy championships despite being a little bit disappointing of late. Now, time for another break here on Fantasy Football Live. When we come back, it's the people's favorite segment as Judge Andy Behrens dons his wig, and he will address the never-ending conundrum for you fantasy players out there that is Taysom Hill. Don't go away.
And we're back here on season 15 of FFL. Let's check in on who's trending this morning. We've got no surprise here, Teddy Bridgewater, Damian Harris, Marvin Jones, and Michael Pittman. Well, I'm going to talk about Michael Pittman later on in the show, so let's put a pin in him. I think, Matt, Tank, let's talk about PJ Walker. What do we know about PJ Walker since Bridgewater has been ruled inactive here? We know that he went to Temple. We know that he holds a lot of records for the Owls. We know that he was teammates with Robbie Anderson, and we know, obviously, that Matt Rule coached him when he was at Temple before he came to, we also know, gosh, by the way, Matt, that Will Greer, number 3 on that depth chart.
Yeah, yikes. Tough scene for Will Greer there, but PJ Walker, XFL superstar this year, you mentioned the Temple connection. We'll see if that materializes into a lot of juice for Robbie Anderson, who's only scored 1 touchdown on the year despite being top 10 in the NFL in receiving yards. This could be a nice get-right spot for Robbie Anderson. Maybe he finds the end zone for the first time in forever because of that former college quarterback connection. Also, Walker can move around a little bit. That's going to be exciting for the offense, too. Obviously, from the XFL, we saw him be that type of playmaker. Maybe that also helps out Mike Davis, who in his second stint as CMC's replacement hasn't been quite as fun for fantasy managers.
Roughneck stand
Hey,
up.
Liz,
All right,
Liz,
Tank.
I got a quick question, Liz. I got a quick question. All right, so Harmon, if you had PJ Walker, Jared Goff, or Derek Carr, who you starting?
Oh, man. This is a good one. Look, I think that Bucks-Rams game, I don't have a really good read on how that's going to go because the Bucks have been so weird in prime time as an offensive team. We know they're one of the best defenses theoretically in the NFL, but I feel like McVay, the way that they design offense, the way that they go over the middle of the field, that's where you want to attack Tampa Bay as a defense. Devin White's giving up a 100 passer rating, over 100 passer rating, way over 100 passer rating in coverage this year. I think they can get the ball out quick. I think they can actually replicate the same game plan that the Saints used against this Bucs defense last time we saw them on Sunday Night Football. So I would probably go with Jared Goff there.
Okay.
Boring answer, ultra boring answer. I'm sorry.
For an ultra boring quarterback, that's totally, it makes sense. You're consistent. Tank, let me ask you, we talked a little bit earlier about running back by committee. New England, Damian Harris, why do you think there are so many questions about Damian Harris? Because when you look at the matchup, it's obviously solid. And also Harris, I understand there's a chest injury and an ankle injury, and he did, tweak one of those a couple of weeks ago and had to leave the game in the second half. But every time Damian Harris has recorded at least 15 totes, he has gone over 100 yards, and the Texans are allowing an average of 32 rush attempts per game. Doesn't this feel to you like a pretty solid place for Harris?
Absolutely, and I'm going to keep it tight so I don't cut into my boy's time with the wig. So, this is the perfect spot for Damian Harris. The reason we have concerns is because we have to worry about Cam Newton vulturing touchdowns or Rex Burkhead sneaking in there or something like that. But those are things that are out of your control. Bill Belichick is out of your control. This dude has an incredible matchup. He's going to get a lot of volume, probably get a touchdown, plug him in your lineup, and pray to sweet baby Jesus that he gets in the end zone.
Amen. We'll continue to keep an eye on the social conversation. Please keep sending your questions, and we'll get to more soon.
All right, today's case in fantasy court, I'll tell you right off the bat, it clearly relates to gameplay on another fantasy platform, and it's not clear if I'm actually licensed to rule on this. My authority is absolute in Yahoo leagues, less so when we venture away from Yahoo. Also, we're talking about the Taysom Hill position eligibility nightmare today. So position eligibility was not my area of focus in fantasy law school. It's a passion of Matt Harmon, so if you want to have that conversation, have it with Matt, not with me. This question comes to us from Nick. As commissioner, do I manually take away Hill's tight end eligibility? Again, he's not tight end eligible in Yahoo leagues. Guy who's playing against him is pleading his case of keeping the sanctity of the league, that this is totally broken. I know if I make a change, the guy who has Hill is going to throw a fit. Should I do a league vote? We've talked about this, and I think we've sorted this one out already offline. First of all, I should say that I don't really have any issue with Taysom Hill having eligibility other than quarterback. He lines up everywhere. He's like a living, breathing gadget of a player. Plenty of snaps that he's seen in the slot, out wide, in line as a tight end, in the backfield, right? He is a He's a multi-purpose fantasy tool, right? So I have no issue with him being eligible at a position other than quarterback. That said, it does set up a situation in which he is clearly, if he's eligible at tight end or receiver, he's clearly the #1 overall tight end. He's clearly a top wide receiver. I get it. I understand why people would be upset. This court generally allows broad authority to commissioners to make sure that their leagues are happy. Listen, if you feel that you need to step in the interests of fair play, I totally get it. If your league is in absolute revolt, I get it. The one point I want to make here is that nothing changed on any fantasy platform in Week 11. Taysom Hill has carried whatever his position eligibility is, wide receiver, tight end, he's had it all year. Every time your league goes to the waiver wire, they see it. This situation has been in play all year. I mean, because he's on the depth chart at quarterback. We've had the situation where he could receive snaps at quarterback, still be eligible at tight end. Yeah, he'd be the #1 tight end, but this is a game, and it sounds like one person in your league was actively playing the game, saw the opportunity here, and is taking advantage of it. So I would say that at least for this week, at least for Week 11, you got to let him roll with Taysom Hill at tight end or wide receiver or wherever he's eligible. It's a huge advantage, of course, but they played the game the right way. So I want to reward them for that. If it has to be revisited thereafter because your league is in total mutiny, I get it. But for now, I think he has to remain eligible at any position where he's listed on a platform.
Yeah, my lawyers have told me to issue a statement of no comment to that very, very unfair accusation by Andy Barron. So we'll just keep it moving along to the next segment here. It's our second over-under of the day, and it is about one Tom Brady, only eligible at quarterback because he plays quarterback. He's listed on the team's depth chart as a quarterback. That's all I'll say. The over-under here is pretty light, 1.5 touchdowns. I'm going to go over on this one. Like I said earlier, I think that game could be rather high scoring despite the fact he got two good defenses here, like the way that LA can attack Tampa Bay's defense. And I know that Tampa Bay has had some weird primetime demons, but let's exercise those. Let's get the ball out quick. Got three good playmakers. It's just hard for me to see, even if the Bucs offense isn't like that great in this game, it's hard for me to see him not putting up 2 touchdowns. Like 2, that's it? You got all these guys, you're only asking to put up 2? I'm gonna go over on this one. Tank, how about you?
Man, I got to go with the over too. And I understand that the Rams defense has only given up 1 passing touchdown in the last 3 games, but dog, they let Jimmy Garoppolo throw for 3 touchdowns against them. And that's all I need to know. Tommy Boy, the Bucs offense is the 6th highest scoring offense in the league. And I think Tom Brady is throwing for the 4th most touchdowns. And if Jimmy Garoppolo can do it, bruh, I'm pretty sure Tommy Boy can. So I'm going over.
Yeah, Panthers could have had 70 dropped on them by this Bucs team last week. Liz, do we have a sweep here with Tom Brady?
Nah, girl, not at all. I'm taking the under on this one. Let's break it down a little bit. Yes, the O-line in Tampa Bay has been stellar. I mean, I would be too if I had the fear of God instilled in me on a weekly basis. They've only given up 14 sacks. They've been pretty healthy, though. Ali Marpet probably won't suit up this week. Top 5 pass protecting unit per Football Outsiders, except Tom Brady has gotten smacked in games when he has faced elite D-lines. We're talking New Orleans, we're talking the Bears. He got sacked 3 times in each of those games. He also only managed to clear this line in those matchups 1 time. Give me the under. And by the way, Matt, how are you betraying your brand new brother-in-law who made the point that Tom Brady has not looked good in a Tampa Bay uniform on prime time? Matt's brother-in-law for the analysis on this one. Give me the under.
Yeah, well, I think Tom Brady's going to set the new tone in primetime, just like sometimes as a brother-in-law, you got to set the tone. Let him know what this Harmon family's all about, and it's what I say goes. Now let's go on to the next segment.
Way to start the family relations. Let's get to our bust for Week 11 in our Off Their Game segment. These are players over 50% started in Yahoo leagues who could disappoint today. Tank, you are up first.
Oh, I'm going with Todd Gurley going against that New Orleans Saints defense. I believe Jared already talked about it. The Saints defense was playing pretty good ball the middle part of the season. The Saints have only allowed 1 touchdown to a running back in 6 games, the least fantasy points to running backs. No Marshawn Lattimore, so you know what that means. A heavy dose of Julio! That's all I'm looking forward to this week. Sorry, Ty Gurley. I mean, I understand if y'all get up, which y'all probably won't because the Saints been playing lights out even without Drew Brees. But even in that case, I feel like it's going to be more of a Ridley the Riddler game of Julio, not Ty Gurley.
Ooh, Andy, who are you downgrading?
I'm going to try the old reverse jinx here on DJ Chark because I have him on a lot of rosters, and I would love it if he did something against Pittsburgh, but it's just a brutal matchup. Pittsburgh's defense on the season, they rank number 5 against the pass overall, 2nd in pass defense DVOA, so very difficult matchup. Chark now catching passes from Jake Luton. There has been one splash play between these guys. It was a couple weeks ago, but then last week only 4 catches for Chark, 50-some yards. That's not going to pay the fantasy bills, and it is really hard to imagine Luton and Chark connecting multiple times again against this Pittsburgh defense that has been so good. So if I had better options, which I don't, I would take them.
I had Robbie Anderson queued up, and I still think he needs to be downgraded, not because of the reason, though, not because of P.J. Walker. I actually think, as we alluded to earlier in the show, that this could be a good opportunity for Robbie Anderson to find the end zone because of the Temple connection. But I also think that we need to look at him more as a low-end wide receiver, too, because when I look at the game flow, Detroit doesn't have any play. I mean, who's going to fight back for the Detroit Lions? You got Matt Stafford with a bad throwing thumb. Kenny Galladay's out. DeAndre Swift is out. Danny Amendola is out. I think this is going to be a run-friendly contest because I don't think the Carolina is going to have to do a whole lot. So I think in terms of volume, which has basically been buoying Anderson, we're going to see a dip in that. So he's still a wide receiver too, but downgraded a little bit for me. Now let's toss it over to Jared for his mad bets for Week 11.
Man, I am excited to be here. Minty had one request. She said, my first week, I got to pick a winner. So my best bet of the week is the best team in the NFL right now. The 9-0 Steelers to be 10-0 after they beat the Jaguars by more than 10.5 points. Clear point is, Jaguars aren't a very good team. They did play the Packers close last week, but that's because of punt return and some crazy turnovers. Meanwhile, the Steelers' defense is amazing. Jake Luton has played against the Texans and the Packers. He hasn't played a defense with TJ Watt on it. So I don't think they score more than 17 points here, meaning the Steelers only need to get to 28, which is well below their season average. To cover that spread, I like the Steelers minus 10.5. And if you win that bet, you'll have money for Sunday Night Football, which is an amazing game between the Chiefs and the Raiders. The Chiefs are 7-0 favorite, and I only have 2 betting rules. Number 1, you're not going to win all your bets. And number 2, never bet against Andy Reid after a bye. He's 18-3 against the spread. I think he's going to have some amazing plays drawn up. A touchdown's a lot for a road favorite, but I still think Andy Reid can get it done with the weapons that he has, especially since his only loss was against the Raiders. And last but not least, Monday Night Football, the Buccaneers are going to handle business against the Rams. Rams haven't played well in Florida. They lost to the Dolphins. Now they're coming all the way to the East Coast again to play against the Buccaneers, who have one of the best run-stop defenses in the NFL. And the Rams like to run the ball, so if that gets neutralized, I don't trust Jared Goff to get it done. Give me the Buccaneers minus 4.5, and let's make some money, y'all. It's my first week here. I'm here to help you. So follow me, and then if you like that, watch our show on Twitter on Yahoo Sportsbook Mad Bets, and you'll get a lot more of these winners.
All right, let's jump into the chat room. You people out there, you think you're screaming into the void or just talking to each other. Probably you're actually just there to talk to each other, but whatever, be that as it may. We're going to answer some questions from the social chat rooms right now. Tank and I are going to do it, so hit me with your good emojis. That is how you get my attention in this segment. And I'm going to start off with Dory Cameron from Facebook, Tank. She kept it pretty simple with her emojis, like that little weird sticking the tongue out emoji and a football and just the dartboard. Let's try to be accurate on the dartboard with these picks. She's got to pick between Michael Pittman, Mike Evans, or Jacoby Myers. Of those 3, which is your favorite, Tank?
It was gonna be, so this is the thing, like I like going with the known quantity, Mike Evans. And so for me, it's between Evans and Myers. Myers has the best matchup. Cam Newton has just been zeroing in on him. I feel like that's the easiest play, and that should be the play. Man, Jalen Ramsey is gonna be on Mike Evans too. I think I gotta go Jacoby Myers, man. Sometimes you just gotta go with your gut. It may not sound right, and that's why you have to ask the question, but I think that's the right play.
I agree with you. I think he is the safest bet here. I mentioned it earlier, like all of the target share, air yard share numbers are just so in his favor right now. He's like literally being used like a number one receiver. But if you need some upside, I don't hate Michael Pittman. That dude is a baller. One of my favorite receivers coming into this year's draft class. And he was first in routes run, red zone targets, air yards, everything you want last week against the Titans. I think if that game gets high scoring between the Colts and Packers, he's a guy who could really benefit. All right. Let's move to, and this is an appropriate use of emojis here from Joey on Facebook. Just that like blushing, like shocked emoji. He's shocked that he's got to ask this one, and I'm shocked you're here too, buddy. But Kerryon Johnson or Rex Burkhead, oof. Ooh. Yeah, it's week 11. We're at this point of the season. Honestly, though, dang. I don't think you can go with Kerryon Johnson. Like, sure, DeAndre Swift being out, it's a good matchup against the Panthers. Like, there's some talking points in his favor, but I just feel like they're going to saddle up Adrian Peterson with 25 carries. At least you know Burkhead is kind of surpassed James White as the passing down back there in New England right now. What do you think, Tank, when it comes to this disgusting question?
Man, I think I'm with you, man. I can see this being the AD day all day, bro. So, like, honestly, Burkhead, even when Damian Harris is getting the majority of the carries, he's still getting in there, spelling them. They like to do gadget plays to Burkhead. So I feel like the touchdown upside is more aligned with Burkhead than it is with Kerryon Johnson. So I think we in lockstep on this one, too.
Yeah, all right, let's cleanse the palate and finish up with some actually good players here for our last question. Dara from Facebook sends in a lovely Thanksgiving themed set of emojis with the turkey leg, the beer, a plate, a knife to carve that thing with, and of course some pie to finish it off. I am so looking forward to Thanksgiving this year. Dara is looking forward to an answer from this question. She needs 2 wide receivers here. Amari Cooper, DJ Chark, Antonio Brown, Jacoby Myers. Tank, pick 2 of those 4 here.
I think we already talked about Myers. I think we have to go with them there. I think I kind of like your projected game script when you think about that Tampa Bay Rams game, so I may have to go AB. I don't like DJ Chark. Who's the other option?
It's Amari Cooper, and Cooper's like actually not that bad of an option either now that I think Dalton's back. Obviously, like that could be maybe an upgrade, but you're going with like the floor play in Myers, and then it's either like which ceiling do you like better between Brown and Cooper, and I feel like I like AB's ceiling better.
Yeah, I like that. At the same time, we know that the Minnesota secondary, man, it's been a little beat up. We just don't know who Andy Dalton's going to throw the ball more to, Dallas or Minnesota. So, I mean, I think I have to go with AB in this one, too, just because that connection with Tom has been on point ever since he suited up with the Bucs.
Love it. All right, folks, keep hitting that chat room up with your good questions and your good emojis. We'll come back to you all later. Don't worry, you're not just going to be screaming into the void or casually talking to each other, which, again, is probably what you're actually doing. But we are going to take another break here on Fantasy Football Live. When we come back, it's the moment you've all been waiting for. We're going to do another over-under on Saints starting quarterback, Taysom Hill. It's going to be a fun little debate coming up here right after the break.
All right, our final over-under of the show. It deals with the man of the fantasy hour, New Orleans Saints starting quarterback Taysom Hill. And the line here is, it's lofty. It's 21.9 fantasy points. Give me the over on this one. The matchup this week is just spectacular. It's the Atlanta Falcons. They allow the second most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. They allow over 300 passing yards per game. Now, Drew Brees this season was averaging 265 passing yards per game without ever going downfield, without ever once looking downfield, nothing but short passing. We know that Taysom Hill has the big arm, so maybe they stretch the field a little bit. We also know that with Taysom Hill, you're going to probably get 10, 12 designed runs in this one, so pretty easy to see a path for like 270 passing yards, maybe 60 rushing yards. 2-3 combined touchdowns in this one. I think he exceeds this number easily. Matt, how do you feel?
I'm so excited for the Taysom Hill experience. Number one, I've always been sort of a sneaky Taysom Hill fan because there's two things I love. It's weird stuff and being a contrarian. And the fact that everyone hates Taysom Hill, literally hates Taysom Hill on Twitter. I love to go against the cesspool. I'm easily going over here. And if there was ever a team that was dumb enough to let Taysom Hill drop 100 rushing yards and 250 passing yards and a couple of touchdowns on him, it's definitely the 28th ranked Falcons in DVOA. They give up the most touchdown passes of the year, just 14 sacks. Love it. This is an easy over for me. I'm so excited for the Taysom Hill experience. They should have flexed this game just for Taysom Hill into Sunday Night Football and let the Twitter streets burn down in the wake of the chaos.
Oh, hell yeah, I love it. Now I'm more fired up than ever for it. Jared, please, let's get a sweep here. Come on.
Well, Minty texted me after the last over-under and told me that we have to go under here. And I enjoy it because I killed two birds with one stone because I get to go the opposite of Harmon, which has been great for me. Taysom Hill's great. Don't get me wrong. He's going to be great. But I think he's more of a distraction. Obviously, Sean Payton's a smart coach. He knows that people have to know where Taysom Hill lines up. Doesn't always mean he's going to be under center. I think Jameis Winston still gets in a lot, and I think he does throw the ball more. And I think Taysom Hill's the running back that can throw the ball to Michael Thomas. But 21 points, are we just going to assume that he's going to take over and be Drew Brees all right away? I don't think so. I think he's going to run the ball well. He may get paid dirt, but I just don't think 21, that's too many points.
It is most definitely not too many points. Please, that was such a minty call by you. Let's kick it to Tank for his DFS plays, where I have to believe he's going to be talking about Taysom Hill as well.
And you know this what it do, baby. It's your boy T-Money with my Week 11 value plays. So let's go ahead and forget what Jared said. And at quarterback, I got Taysom Hill versus the Atlanta Falcons for $24. They already told you everything you need to know. Atlanta's giving up the most fantasy points to quarterbacks. They've actually allowed 4 rushing touchdowns to quarterbacks. What does Taysom Hill like to do? Run the ball. Now, the only thing I can say is that Alvin Kamara can't guard Mike. If y'all got them in y'all rosters, boy, y'all better hide y'all kids because y'all going to be big pissed off today because Taysom vulturing all them touchdowns. So go ahead and make sure you get your mind right because it's going to be a bumpy ride. Now, at running back, I'm going with Kalen Ballage. The Ballage Revenge Tour continues for only $16. My girl Lizzie told you all about the reasons why you should like him. He's getting a lot of volume, but most importantly, he's playing against the Adam Gase clueless New York Jets. And whenever I see that and I see somebody super cheap like Ballage, I can't help but smack that button, especially when it's only $16. Now, at wide receiver, I'm going with Deontay Johnson at $18 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They give up the 9th most fantasy points to wide receivers. And I understand, it could be a little tricky. I've said over the past few weeks, it's hard trying to decide whether you go with Johnson or you go with Claypool or Juju Smith-Schuster, but this dude has 21 targets in the past 2 games. Man, 21 targets, he's only $18. That's way too many targets for $18. Make sure you get him in your lineup. And that tight end, Lizzie and I already talked about how frustrating the tight end position has been this year. But TJ Hockenson has that matchup against the Carolina Panthers. He was kind of off last week where Marvin Jones and Marvin Hall got off. So how it normally happens in the NFL, you practicing against the plays where the guys got off last week, and so the stuff that you didn't practice against, that ends up working the following week, which means Andy's bastard child, TJ Hockenson, is getting off this week against them Carolina Panthers for $19. So remember, the T is for the money, and the money is something that you won't have in your lineup unless you get my boys in your roster. So go ahead, Dan, pull up them DFS stats so everybody can see why you need to plug my guys in. See, as always, I'm number one. But look, Minty won another week, so we tied for the weekly wins with 4 each, which is why I had to get her up out of here. So welcome, Jared. It's time for me to go ahead and get my Russell Wilson on, start cooking again, and the takeover is here. Go ahead, Lizzie.
Woo, well, there's still time to get in on the action in the new Yahoo Cup Bet MGM Daily Contest. Enter every week for a chance at $75,000 in total prizes, and the top 25 lineups each week will be entered into the Yahoo Cup Bet MGM Final, where you could win free rooms from MGM Resorts or a $20,000 Vegas getaway. Head to yahoo.com/dailyfantasy to join.
Happy to welcome to the show this week the fantasy community segment, Marvin Eloquin. He is a ranker and writer for the Dynasty Nerds, the Fantasy Footballers. Marvin, thanks so much for hanging out with me today in the community space.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Matt. Appreciate it, and I'm glad to be here and talk some football with you.
One of the weekly pieces that you write every single week, it's sort of just would you call it kind of like a high-level view of like Dynasty sort of movers, fallers, everything like that?
Exactly. So it's really just a stock report highlighting some of the guys that are trending up, trending down, and different tidbits that I find. It's not necessarily just one metric or one position. It's all around Dynasty.
I love it. You told me this week that the 3 guys that you said that were moving up this week, 2 of them are rookie receivers from this class, which is what we're going to talk about today. Michael Pittman of the Indianapolis Colts and Brandon Ayouk. Now, I love the Pittman pick because he finally had his breakout game last week. He was first in terms of routes run, red zone targets, snap percentage. So tell me what you like about Pittman, and not just how his breakout looks the rest of this season, but maybe even going forward.
Yeah, just over the last 2 weeks, he's kind of taken on that role as the lead receiver for the Colts. Leads them in targets per game, receptions per game, yards per target, which is great to see. He had that compartment syndrome in his calf and was out for a long time, but he's now back, and it's great to see this last game for him to assume that role, produce. And what I love about him, he's just really sure-handed. He's wide receiver 6 in true catch rate, just catchable targets. He reels them in, and he's one of those smooth receivers, and I think that's exactly what they need there in Indianapolis. With T.Y. Hilton no longer the same receiver he once was, they need a playmaker to emerge, and the sky's the limit for him in Indianapolis. I think he could be the wide receiver 1 going forward starting in 2021.
Tell me about Brandon Ayoke a little bit too. I mean, he's got the kind of the world in his hands right now with all of the injuries there in San Francisco as well. Exactly.
In my article, I highlighted that he's potentially the only bright spot for that team because they've just been hit with injuries left and right. And to me, what I love about him is in college, he was one of the best yards after catch receivers. He led this class in yards after catch per reception. And we're seeing some of that here in his rookie year as well. And over the last, I guess, since week 7, since Debo and Kittle have unfortunately gone out with injury. He's the wide receiver 5 in points per game, wide receiver 4 in yards per game, in weighted opportunity as well. So he's assuming that role, and I think he's proving that he's reliable, someone they can scheme around and use in many different ways. And that's what I love about him, is that he's not just a deep threat. He's not just a possession receiver. He can be all of it, and he's just showing that he's an efficient route runner, one of the best in this class. And I do admit that it's going to be a crowded wide receiver room and receiving room in general, with Kittle coming back at some point and Debo Samuel coming back as well. But I do think he's proven up to this point that he can take over as the wide receiver 1, and I do think he has a role going forward.
Marvin, tell us where the people can find you. Tell them where they can find the Dynasty Report and all of your great work that you're doing, man.
I appreciate that so much. Thanks again for having me. And as far as my work goes, you guys can always find me on Twitter at @FF_MarvinE. You can find my Dynasty rankings on Dynasty Nerds. Some of my pieces are on Dynasty Nerds as well, but my weekly article comes out every Wednesday on the Fantasy Footballers website. And it's the Dynasty Report that just recaps some of the risers and fallers in the Dynasty landscape. Most of my stuff ends up on Twitter anyway, so if you guys follow me there, you'll find it.
Love it, Marvin. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Let's check back in on Twitter for some more viewer questions at the hashtag AskFFL. All right, from one Marvin to a question about another one. This one is from Kim. Should she start Marvin Hall or KJ Hamler? We've got 2 banged up quarterbacks. Hall with the air yards. Hamler coming off of a 10-target effort. Andy, which of these two is your poison?
Yeah, I love this question. Deep league, obviously, played by Kim, so that's great. I'm going to go Hamler here. Hamler actually back-to-back 10-target games. He's playing the slot now for Denver, and I know his quarterback situation isn't great. The matchup this week isn't ideal against Miami, but back-to-back games with double-digit targets does it for me. And they look to him in the red zone as well, so good shot at a touchdown here. It might be the only offensive touchdown scored by Denver, but again, you really like the volume here. He's playing the slot. The targets are absolutely guaranteed. I think he catches 6 balls in this one.
Like the call, Matt. This next one is for you. It's a running back question. Oh, Tim wants to know LaMichael Pirine or Damian Harris or Jerry Jeudy, one of these things, not like the other two. Also, Tank and I talked up Harris earlier. Are you veering away from that pick in this situation?
No, I am not. Not against the Houston Texans defense that is not good and allowed 200-yard rushers last week in Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. I think Damian Harris can be established in this one. And obviously the answer to all questions with Pirine in it is #NeverJets. You don't need to, don't mess around with that.
All right, Tank, I know you talked up Taysom Hill, but maybe you have to do it for Justin one more time because he wants to know if he should play Tua ahead of Hill. Is that enough of an edge for you? Are you still dying on this Hill?
Come on, man. Like Taysom Hill has the best matchup of all fantasy quarterbacks. Like, he may not be the best fantasy quarterback, but he has the best matchup. And even though Tua has played well, it's been more so that Miami team has played well around him. Going against a tough Denver defense that has shut down a lot of good fantasy quarterbacks and good regular, like real quarterbacks. So, man, this is easy for me, Taysom Hill.
Okay, Matt, what kind of emojis are popping in the chat? What are folks asking?
Yeah, Stefan from Facebook sends in a lovely story one, which is smart because he's asking for our galaxy brains here. And you got the mind-blowing emoji. I think actually that might be a squid. I don't know what the hell that is. And then there's an explosion. It's all great. Anyway, Stefan, good stuff. Love the question. Needs our galaxy brains here for 2 wide receivers and a flex in full PPR. T. Higgins, Justin Jefferson, Chase Claypool, Mike Davis, and James Robinson. I'm going to answer part of this question, and then I'm going to have Andy help me. For the wide receiver part, stop asking if you should start Justin Jefferson. You should start Justin Jefferson here in week 11. You should do it in week 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And if you're a psycho that plays in week 17, start him again in week 17 too. And then my other pick there would be Chase Claypool over T. Higgins. Now for the flex part of this, Andy, I need your help here because you're smarter than me and better looking. But that's a different discussion. Mike Davis or James Robinson, which one would you prefer? Banged up quarterback in one spot and Jake Luton in the other.
Yeah, those are both highly questionable. I'm going to go Mike Davis here. It is really hard for me to veer away from James Robinson because he's actually, he's been fine even in difficult matchups, but wow, does he have a difficult matchup this week. And Davis has pretty much the best possible matchup for a running back against Detroit. They allow the most fantasy points to the position. It is just a great spot for him. I do expect to see a little bit of Curtis Samuel in the backfield. That's been fun so far this year, but I'm going to go Davis here. Slight lean over Robinson.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We're inching ever closer to kickoff here on Fantasy Football Live. When we come back, an update on Chargers running back Austin Eckler from the man himself. Don't want to miss that, so be right back.
right, we're back here on Fantasy Football Live. And before we talk about what's trending, what's blowing up all of our phones, let's check in on a player that I know there's a lot of interest around here heading into the stretch run. It's Chargers running back Austin Eckler. I had a chance to catch up with my guy here last couple days ago, and he was kind enough to provide an update on his injury and his comeback process. Let's take a look.
Yeah, ever since I injured my hamstring, well, first off, thanks for having me. But ever since I injured the hamstring, I think it was 6 weeks ago from Sunday. So I'm getting to that range as far as time where it's feeling pretty good. So I can see myself, jumping into maybe some drills this week coming off of IR. That's a management decision, but I'm definitely doing some football cuts and looking like I'm going to be coming back here probably in the next couple weeks.
The message from Austin has been consistent. He's coming, folks, just a little while longer. You got to love a guy that actually reaches out to us and gives us a little injury update. Now let's check in on what's trending. Andy, hit me with it. What do the people want to know from you?
Adrian has sent this question to me like 4 or 5 times so far this morning. Adrian has a burning trade question. It is trade Keenan Allen for Michael Thomas. That's going to be a hard no from me. I can't imagine what sort of manager with Keenan Allen on a roster would say, wow, I have to get myself out of this Keenan Allen situation. He scored a touchdown in 3 straight games. It's great to hear that Austin Eckler is coming back, but that's not going to affect Keenan Allen at all. He's seen 19 targets once this season. Justin Herbert is looking for him early and often. He has 6 or 7 games with double-digit targets. And again, not just 10, but like 12, 13, 14, 19. Keenan Allen is basically having the season that Michael Thomas had last year. Thomas so far essentially a non-entity. He's been injured. Now he has Taysom Hill to deal with. There's no way I would do this. I would keep Keenan Allen.
I agree with you on that one, Andy. Jared, now that you've been enjoying your big break as a member here of Fantasy Football Live, what are the people asking you this morning?
Well, we had a crazy tweet. Yahoo Sportsbook got this one. Someone put $250,000 on the Browns to cover 2.5, and they asked, is that a stupid bet? Anytime you bet on the Browns, it could possibly be a stupid bet. But against the Eagles this year, it's not really that bad. The Eagles have been terrible. Carson Wentz is having the time of his life just getting the ball out of his hands, let alone completing that pass. And so for the sake of this guy's $250,000 bet, I hope they cover that spread. But is it a stupid bet? Anytime you put $250,000 on the Browns, you probably should get checked in the mental hospital, because that's not a good bet. But I hope you win.
That was me. It's just play money. That was me.
Humble brag. That is quite a big humble brag there from you, Andy. Appreciate it. Next time I'm in a little bit of a financial bind, I'll be sure to give you a ring. Maybe you can help me out there. Keep those messages coming in. Our very own Scott Pianowski is, as we speak, still answering questions with the hashtag AskFFL on Twitter all the way up until kickoff, so keep them coming in.
It is Fantasy Face-Off time. It's me against Tank, and here we'll be debating similarly ranked running backs as well as tight ends. In our first set, I'll be taking Antonio Gibson, and Tank, you have Mike Davis against Detroit. Tell me why you're right, because I think you might be.
Yeah, I'm right. I mean, Detroit Lions, they give up the most fantasy points to running backs. I mean, I think I'm right, just right there. But on top of that, we got P.J. Walker, like the most dynamic dude in the XFL coming. He was good with his arm, even better with his legs. And so what does that mean? One less blocker in the run game. Mike Davis and P.J. Walker should be able to do like spins and twists on this Detroit Lions run defense this week.
I'm not going to do a ton of spins and twists trying to defend my position. I just want to admit that I want to use it to hype up Antonio Gibson, who, yes, I'm ranking a little bit behind Mike Davis, but has still been straight money. Heading into last week, everyone was buzzing about J.D. McKissic, right? Well, 14 targets in a game will do that. Meanwhile, Antonio Gibson, while he is not the preferred running back on passing downs, found the end zone twice. He has scored every single game this year except 3 times, and you like the matchup against the Bengals, who are giving up an average of over 5 yards per carry to opposing rushers. All right, next up, it is Dalton Schultz against Logan Thomas. Ooh, these are some, these peaches are not juicy and nothing here. But tell me, Tank, about Logan Thomas.
All right, so Logan Thomas, like, I have to admit, like, Dalton Schultz, that's another Stanford cat, so I like to root for those guys. But I have Logan Thomas in my lineup this week, and I'm playing in the league against one of my Stanford buddies where I need to beat his head in. This dude has been averaging about 5 targets a game. He hasn't gotten in the end zone the past 2 games, but the 2 games prior to that, he got tubbed. So I'm thinking that good touchdown juju comes and represents itself this week. So my man Logan Thomas is the play.
I cannot wait for Logan Thomas to keep trying to get it up. Instead, I like Dalton Schultz because while his targets have been absolute garbage, he's at least getting a ton of them. And now we got Andy Dalton back. I know Dalton didn't prioritize Schultz in that game against the Cardinals, but the Cardinals are like kind of good against the position despite their historic record against tight ends. Schultz, meantime, he is top 6 in total looks, top 5 in deep looks. He's running like 33 routes on average per game. And also the matchup against the Vikings, they have faltered against similarly involved tight ends. I'm talking Mo Alley-Cox, Jonnu Smith, Hayden Hurst, TJ Hawkinson. All those guys managed to win against the Vikings. So I like Schultz in a sneaky value spot here. All right, whoever is next, go do your thing.
Well, that's me. Hey, that's me. It's make your pick time. We're going to take a few of your social questions here. Let's look to the Twitter feed and see what is popping there. It's Coach Rude, Coach Rudd, probably Coach Rudd. All coaches are rude in my experience. Full PPR flex. He needs 1 from Justin Jefferson, Gio Bernard, Hayden Hurst. Wow, congrats to Hayden Hurst for making his way into this question. Or Godwin with Tampa. I mean, I think I know where you're going on this particular question, Matt, because you kind of planted the flag earlier on Justin Jefferson.
Stop asking whether you should start Justin Jefferson. Just start Justin Jefferson against the Cowboys in Week 11, Week 12, Week 13, Week 14, Week 15, Week 16, Week 17. If you're a psycho that plays then, start Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, I fully agree here. I have a lot of respect for that Giovanni Bernard mustache. I'm always drawn to it, but no, I can't go that route. You've got to go Justin Jefferson here. He's an absolute star. Must play. Next question this week here is from Don. Don is asking Mike Davis, Antonio Gibson, Todd Gurley, pick 2. I'm going to start us off here. Again, I think you got to play Mike Davis. It's the best possible matchup for any fantasy running back against Detroit. You want to go Davis, and I'm going to go Antonio Gibson here. Again, spectacular matchup against Cincinnati. We've seen them give up huge points to the running back position all year. Todd Gurley, as Tank discussed earlier, brutal matchup with the New Orleans run defense. Do you agree?
I'm with you lockstep on this one. This is the type of game script that you want to use Antonio Gibson in. You figure this is going to be a pretty close back and forth, maybe lower scoring competitive game here. That sounds like the type of spot where Gibson could get a ton of volume over J.D. McKissic. Shout out to this questioner's Twitter avatar, though. I mean, like, that is me with the cigarette, like, looking all disgusted at all of my fantasy teams at this point of the season.
It's a double win for Don. Keep those questions coming, folks. Remember, use the hashtag AskFFL.
And let's get to some last-minute sleepers who could do some fantasy damage. This week, I've got 2 rookie wideouts, and I want to start with Michael Pittman. I know we've been talking him up all episode, but he finally had himself a breakout last week with a 7-catch, 101-yard effort. This kid is physical, plays with confidence, and he is reliable. And what does Phillip Rivers need? A receiver with all 3 of those things. This week's matchup against Green Bay has a projected point total of 52.5 per BetMGM. You got Jair Alexander probably covering T.Y. Hilton. That means that Kevin King, who's coming back from Achilles, is probably going to see Pittman. I love the matchup for him. Go ahead and flex him. Also, Matt talked about Jalen Rhaegar, who I additionally love as the future of the Phillies receiving core earlier in the episode. Here's something about Jalen Rhaegar. We're going to talk about fits and quarterbacks and receivers. Jalen Rhaegar is really used to producing with trouble. Let's just say that trouble under center. Only 30.4% of Rhaegar's targets in 2019 were considered on target. So, hey, Carson Wentz, Jalen Rhaegar, perfect match. And of course, we also like the matchup here at Cleveland. They're giving up loads of yards to the position. It's time to take our final break here on Fantasy Football Live, but don't forget, Yahoo was rated the best fantasy sports app by the Fantasy Sports Gaming Association in 2019. Check out this week's top fantasy pickups and award-winning insight on the Yahoo Fantasy app today. When Fantasy Football Live returns, more roster questions, and we'll get back to the chat as well. So please don't go away. Just a few minutes left here on Fantasy Football Live. Let's get to some of those last-minute questions at the hashtag AskFFL. And this first one is from Uncle, I'm not going to try to say it, Chark or Gio in a half-point PPR flex. Tank, Gio Bernard, right?
Yeah, easily Gio Bernard. I mean, you know, Rev, like he's been, you know, rostering Chark all season, but that's a really tough matchup against Pittsburgh. But Gio, whenever Mixon is out, he's going to get a lot of volume. You know, obviously they've been trying to integrate some of those other running backs in, but I always like going with the running backs with the higher floor, so Gio it is. Okay. This next question is from Brian. He politely says, good morning. Thank you for that. Half-point PPR needed a flex out of Nyheim Hines. Ooh, a nice Nyheim Hines question. Rex Burkhead or Brashad Perryman? I love the depth of this one. Andy, can you possibly move away from Hines at this point, especially facing Green Bay's defense?
Yeah, I can actually move away from Hines in this one. That is the very definition of a hot hand backfield, right? They roll them all out in the first quarter and they see who gets going, and then they play that guy. I don't think that Hines necessarily is in line for 50-60% of the snaps as he saw last week. I'm going to go Rex Burkhead here. Matt Harmon talked about it earlier. He has basically leapfrogged James White. He's kind of become that primary pass-catching back, and they run him at the goal line too. So I think he has a decent chance of finding the end zone at least once in a great matchup against Houston.
Jared, this next one is for you, and it is from Ross. He wants to know, what's your take on the Dolphins versus Broncos game line? Dolphins giving 4.
Ooh, without fans, there's not a lot of home field advantage, but Denver's one of the few places that does have home field advantage because of the high altitude. But with that being said, I still like the Dolphins here. They've been amazing. They've won their last 6 out of 7 games. They've only lost to really top-tier teams, and even on the road, they've been handling business. 4 points is a lot, but I feel like Tua, you got to roll with Tua. The kid's only lost like 3 games since you heard of his name. I think Tua goes into Denver, my hometown, and gets a W, he eats a W like Jameis, and the Dolphins defense creates another touchdown. That's what they've been doing, so let's go Dolphins!
All right, this next one, I think this is going to be our last one before we go to the chat, is from John. Matt Stafford or Carson Wentz? Matt Stafford obviously dealing with the thumb injury, not a lot of weapons. Carson Wentz, though, does have Rhaegar flashing, who I talked about earlier, and no Myles Garrett available for Cleveland. I think I might get a little loose this week and play Carson Wentz because, you know what? It's 2020. Anything can happen. That is my personal pick. I don't want to hear if you disagree, Matt, but I do want to hear if people in the chat are buzzing.
I love being let off the hook to weigh in on that quarterback debate there. In the chat room, Ryan Sparks asks us, he's asked us this plenty of times, and he's got the leaves falling and a football emoji. Very fall theme here. Full PPR, Rob Gronkowski or Hayden Hurst. I'm going Gronk in this spot. Like his role, like the fact that he's been used, like the fact that he looks pretty good. I think this Bucs offense is coming together, and I think they exercise the primetime demons. I'm going to go with that one right there. Victor on Facebook sends in many turkeys and looks like the tongue emoji, so he's eating and then he's falling asleep. That's the next emoji. Great stuff. That is the way it goes. Non-PPR flex, Gio Bernard, Marvin Jones, or Jacoby Myers. Ooh, Gio and Jacoby, pretty close to me on this one. You can go ahead and toss out Marvin Jones. Not interested in that one. I'm going to go with Jacoby Myers, though. Like I said, 61% share of his team's air yards. I think he is locked in. Now, last thing I want to address here, no more chat questions, but I think keep an eye on this Ravens-Titans game because I'm looking on Twitter talking about what's trending right now. Apparently, Mike Vrabel and John Harbaugh had to be separated by refs. Like, literally, we just talked about Joe Judge and Mark Colombo reportedly, but did not get in a fight when Mark Colombo got fired this past week. Now we've got John Harbaugh and Mike Vrabel about to go to blows. By the way, Mike Vrabel is literally the one coach in the NFL I would 100% not like to fight, okay? He's winning the battle royale of coaches this year. John Harbaugh, I appreciate the fire, my friend, but be careful.
I'm taking Harbaugh plus 400.
I don't blame you. Oh my God, obviously a lot of bad blood given the results of last January between these two teams. That is going to do it for this edition of Fantasy Football Live. Thanks for kicking off your NFL Sunday with us. Remember, you can connect with us all week long on the Yahoo Fantasy Football Forecast. That's our podcast, Mad Bets, daily on Yahoo Sports. And of course, back here every single Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Pacific. Good luck to all your fantasy teams and Harbaugh in Week 11, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Guard your grill, knuckle up.
Mm-hmm.